welcome. Thank you for coming from California. It's great to have you smoke.
Great to be here.
Thank you. I want to put the first kind of question out there just to break the ice. Like, what kind of a name is Smoke? Is it your actual name? I'm like, now, folks might not know you're American Indian, so that's the hint, or partly American Indian. But given the industries that you're in, it's a little ironic. Why don't you just talk about your name?
Really, Zach? You're going to start with my name?
I'm starting with my name.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe a little American Indian and a lot mom hippie. I think that was a lot to do with it. But we all got kind of a earth name and a regular name. So I can assure you it got better after middle school. It was not so great in the early days. It's like a boy named Sue, I guess. But no, it's funny. We'll talk about it, but as I got invested into the cannabis space, and every interview I had was, did you change your name to get into cannabis? I'm like, no, I did not turn 50 and change my name. I was Smoke when you knew me back when, so.
Yeah. So I've actually known Smoke for a long time. We were fraternity brothers at Cornell. I graduated in '87. My roommate from Cornell is here, Jose, also from '87. Smoke graduated in '88, sort of. We can get to that little wrinkle in a second, actually at the end. I didn't really know you that well at school. That was probably my fault a little bit. I was a little,
You were in the library and I was somewhere else.
Yeah, I was definitely in the library. He was definitely somewhere else. He's had I'd say probably a much more interesting life. I mean, I like my life. It's great, but yours is probably a little more interesting. So you've had a lot of ups and downs. You've tackled interesting sectors, beverage, cannabis, psychedelics. Let's start with alcohol and beverage. How did you get into the industry and why?
Well, it was actually, I was interviewing for jobs as a senior at Cornell, and I was, all over the board, kind of thinking about different things that I could do, and I got introduced to someone who worked closely with Seagram, and so I had an interview with Seagram, which is gone now, but they were the largest spirits company in the world at the time, and I got the opportunity to join them in their leadership management training program. So I started at the ground floor, which was, putting up posters and building displays in liquor stores, learning kind of the basics of merchandising and selling.
So with your Cornell hotel degree, went to Seagram's, and then tell us more about where that led to, because you've obviously done a lot more in the alcohol space than Seagram's. Yeah,
well, you think about it, there's obviously, I did spend some time in the hotel school, but the customers of our business were all, hospitality. So restaurants, bars, hotels, retail stores, grocery, depending on the state, selling every channel of trade. So having some understanding of, having worked in hotels and restaurants during college and before, that was really useful kind of going in there as selling brands, trying to get, wine lists and all the things that we do in that side of the world. But very quickly, I jumped over to the distributor side. So the suppliers, the alcohol industry is divided between kind of producers, distillers, brewers, wineries, and then there's distribution companies. And in the U.S., typically that's regulated in every state. There are different rules, but there's a middle tier of distributors. And then the third tier is the retailers and hospitality. So I joined the distribution tier, and we were able to grow that business over a number of years to over $1 billion. And we thought that was pretty big, and then we ended up merging into what is now a $14 billion distribution business. So that was a great journey. It was a great way to learn early in my career, and I had some great talks or little side meetings upstairs. And something that I thought I would mention is, early in my career, I was able to start a number of new businesses within that business. And I guess it's an entrepreneur, right? It's like someone who's worked, so I had this, great platform and this sandbox to create a lot of new innovation, but it was all within that company. So there was pros and cons to it, but the pro was I got to start a lot of things early and we had resources. So that was cool.
Yep. And without getting any of us into any trouble, does the distribution side, is what we see on TV with organized crime actually real, on the distribution side of alcohol?
No, the grandparents or great-grandparents of the current families may have had some crossover era. time when Prohibition, I'm going to talk about this when we get to cannabis, because I went from dealing with the grandkids of the criminals to the criminals themselves in cannabis. So it's a very interesting transition. But no, like the people in the business are very legit. You know, sometimes you run into it's more on the restaurant side. You know, some of those individual accounts can, in certain places, can be a little bit challenging. But the distributors have a pretty good program. They typically have a credit law. It's either COD, or it's 15 days, or it's 30 days. And if you don't pay your liquor distributor, no one will ship you. So all the distributors will put you on a list, and you can't get alcohol from anyone. So they'll pay the distributor before they pay they'll certainly pay the phone bill or whatever other bills. We go pretty high in the ranking. Right. So, but that's because distributors are, set up with their partners with the state. So,
okay, let's move to cannabis. So, with cannabis, you're tackling an industry that is at its infancy, really. And you might know more about cannabis from college than I did. I mean, I wasn't a big partaker, but some people were.
And there were people in our midst that were, but it wasn't really me so much. But
but the industry is, I mean, it's like a million questions, and it's highly regulated. Like, why dip your toe and now both feet into this?
Yeah, so I sold out of my last whiskey and vodka company that I started back in 2017, and my wife Anitra, sitting there with the hat, you can all blame her, said to me, before you do another liquor deal, we got to look at cannabis. And I'm like, okay, not my sport. Not really my world. But I do see it's evolving, and I was vaguely following what was happening at the state level. And I said, you know what, okay, I'm going to take 6 months and just do some research and learn about it. And I did. I spent a lot of time. I spent time in Colorado and California and network. I'm in a group called YPO, which is the Young Presidents Organization. I'm now in the gold sector, which is silent G, so we're all old. But I learned a lot, and there was people that were investing in it, legitimate business people who I respected, who were already investing in some of these early states. And I could see where it was going. I'm like, okay, this is a lot like, there's a lot of parallels to the alcohol industry. The states were taking the lead in this case, but when Prohibition was repealed, and none of us were around for this, but Prohibition was a big failed experiment, right? So the US banned alcohol. And so for like 14 years, we had this crime wave because people drank anyway. It created this huge problem in society. And, by the early 30s, basically the consensus was we can't have this prohibition anymore. And so, but to pass the repeal of Prohibition, I don't know how many know what you have to do to pass a constitutional amendment. You have to get 2/3 of the states to ratify something. So to do that, not everybody agreed. Just like we think we're all divided today. Well, they were divided then too. And the only way to do it was to let each state decide. So that's why you have different liquor laws in New York versus Jersey versus Pennsylvania, where the state's a monopoly, right? There's all different rules. And California, we've got stacks of Bacardi and Grey Goose on the end of a grocery store, right? And that's a totally different market. And so anyway, I was looking at this cannabis thing. I was like, well, the federal government hasn't done it yet, but the states are doing it. And for me, I'm pretty used to being in a regulated business that is state by state. So I felt there was a lot of parallels. Early on, my biggest exposure actually was with some of my veteran friends. I helped a veteran, a Marine, who launched a vodka called Heroes Vodka. And it was about giving back to veterans, and it was, it was great product. We brought it to Walmart. It's all over the country now. It's Heroes Vodka. It's excellent. But in doing that, I met a lot of his friends, and I spent a lot of time with these veterans, and I realized that a lot of these guys came back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were, PTSD, really damaged, or they had lots of injuries, and the VA was just giving them opioids and all kinds of other antidepressants, and they were on this toxic cocktail, and you add in alcohol, and it was like suicide, right? Like, so 22 veterans a day were losing to suicide. So some of these guys had figured out that cannabis got them off of all these drugs. And so that got me really thinking about, well, it's not just a recreational thing. There's a lot of medicinal and health benefits. And so that really got me excited and motivated to get into it. So we did.
You did. And then here you are. Thanks, Anitra, for that. It's all you're doing. Top 3 challenges in cannabis?
Dealing with first-generation criminals versus third generation criminals. I mean, no joke. Like literally, guys left when I first got in, and I was 2018. My partner, these guys left the room, and I looked at them. I goes, those guys were criminals. Like they were actually real criminals. Like those people are real. She's like, yep, welcome to. So we're dealing in a market that has, a lot of illegal activities, and in certain states, they haven't enforced the law very well. So the biggest challenge, honestly, like in California, we've invested probably close to a little under $100 million into our business there. And I would say that the biggest problem there is the illegal market today. So the legal market is probably $6 or $7 billion in sales in California. And the illegal market is probably another, 4 or 5 billion.
So explain though why you were dealing with the criminals. Was that on the supply side?
So there's a lot of people that were like OG. Well, now I'm almost kind of OG a little bit, but they don't look like it. But it's like dog years. Like I was 25 when I joined 5 years ago. Seriously, it's crazy. No, a lot of people tried to jump into the legal market who had been in the illegal market, right? Yeah. So and most of those guys have not been able to transition very well. And then there's also all these, they call them the suits. I don't know why, but that came in with MBAs and from other industries that jumped in and they thought they could just do it, and a lot of them failed. So many companies have gone out of business since I started. It's crazy, and it's because of the illegal market, and then supply and demand. There's what's happened is in a lot of these markets is flower starts out here. It's very hard to make. It's very hard to make properly. And then over time, people figure out how to do it, and price starts to go down, and then kind of collapses. And so a lot of people have had trouble with that. So and then the last thing is banking. So right now we're not allowed to bank. We're technically all criminals. Anyone who's doing cannabis at the state level is federally is breaking the law. Side story, you know the story, but when I was first looking at this, I raised my 4 kids in Indiana. They were all going off to college, and they're like, Dad, this is great. Booze is for the old people. Cannabis is the future. So they're all in favor of it. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think Indiana, I don't think they're quite ready for this. So, let's have a code word. So I said, let's just say that this is, Dad's getting in the avocado business. It's green. It's in California. They make oil. So if we're out to dinner, we're talking about the business. We have a little cover story, so we're not being overheard and judged. And then about 6 months later, I had the opportunity to go on Fast Money on CNBC, the big investment show. And across the bottom, it's CEO, Smoke Wallin, CEO of marijuana company. It's going across the thing, and 7-minute interview. I get off the show, and my phone is blowing up, and it's the kids Dad, your cover's blown. So it's a funny story because now that seems kind of ridiculous, right? But that was 2018. It wasn't that long ago. And I felt the need to kind of not really be public about it. My not being public didn't last long, but that it's really changed quite a bit.
So explain this cash problem a bit. So you end up with lots of cash.
Yeah.
And
so
then the question is what do you do with the cash? Exactly. And the armored trucks and the banks and the.
Yeah. So the reason you have this cash problem is because it's federally illegal. The federal banking system won't touch it. So Chase Bank and Wells Fargo and Bank of America, all those normal banks, they won't touch it. And if you try to deposit money from this business into a bank account that is one of those federal banks, they'll shut down your account if they figure it out. So you can't bank. What's happened is there's been a state ecosystem that has developed in state by state. With state chartered banks that aren't part of that system, very expensive. There's still, you can't use regular credit cards, right? Because they're usually tied to the system. So there's a lot of cash transactions, and it's a recipe for disaster. There's lots of criminality. There's lots of robberies of dispensaries. So we've got the first time I got paid in cash, when I moved to California, I was like, what do you I don't know if you've ever seen. What does $20,000 look like, in a bag? But what do you do with it? I'm like, it sounds great. Oh yeah, I have all this money. And all right, what do you do with it? Because if I took it to Chase would be like, you're out of here, right? And so it's all right, here's $100 to pay for this, right? I still have stacks of 100. What do you do? So it's really a challenge. It really should be fixed. It's kind of it's a tragedy that our federal government has not addressed it. Yeah. It really is. And I've been wrong on television too many times to count of predicting when the federal government would repeal and create some kind of normalization. There's a chance it could happen in the lame duck session. It should have already happened, but it's not happened. And it's 2/3 of the U.S. population think banking should be legal. Something like that number think at least medicinal cannabis should be legal. And vast majorities of both parties are in favor of legalization in general. So, it's our politicians in Washington getting in the way of each other. It's on the right, it's, people, not wanting to go too far and moving slowly. On the left, it's wanting to do everything under the sun socially, progressively, and not being practical about what could be done. Because we could have this already if these parties would get along.
Right. It seems like seems like a no-brainer. I'm a little behind the times. I just started watching Breaking Bad. I'm on like season 4. I watch it at the gym. It's like my gym show. But that cash is just crazy. I mean, obviously what you're doing is not illegal in that sense, but I don't know what you would do with all that cash. You just can't get rid of it.
I had one friend, a YPO friend in Vegas, who early on was, he was like, yeah, you know what we did with it? We took basically literally stacks and stacks of cash, and we paid our taxes with it to the IRS, and they have to take it. It's their money, right? And they overpaid their taxes, so they got checks back. So it's like the U.S. government was like basically laundering the money for these guys. I don't think they were able to do that like forever, but I thought it was a great idea.
Oh, I told you this would be the funnest one. Okay.
Well, otherwise people would be asleep. We had to,
Well, I know, it's the last one. So who is financing the cannabis industry?
So to date, all of the financing has been high net worth individuals and family offices, essentially, because the institutional capital has not been able to touch it, right? So like anybody who's in a normal institution, whatever it is, if you're in the normal investment world, you really couldn't do it through your fund. So now there are probably a bunch of hedge fund guys and very wealthy big investors who have created investment vehicles personally where they have invested in things, but their funds can't do it. So there was, we talked to a lot of like $25 billion funds early on. There was a lot of interest, but all of them couldn't get comfortable with it. I mean, even last month, like it was a month or so ago, UBS sent a notice out to all of their customers saying, you can't have any cannabis stocks in your portfolio. We won't let you have a custodial issue.
Really?
And of course, last week after Biden said, hey, it shall all be okay, they sent out a note saying it's inevitable, it's going to be okay. So I don't know. These guys are back and forth, but it's a problem. But I think all the investment so far has been family offices, individuals. I mean, we raised close to 100 million, just under $100 million for our various ventures, and it was all individual checks. It was all like 100,000 here, 200,000 there, a few million here. But that wasn't easy. But we got it done. I think as soon as some form of safe banking gets passed, there will be the floodgates will open up for institutional capital. There'll be a lot of investment money that's on the sidelines that would come in, which includes other industries. You've got tobacco, obviously. So there's been a few investments in Canada. You've got the beverage alcohol world. Constellation is the most known one, who invested. The old Canandaigua Wine Company invested $4 billion into Canopy up in Canada. They just wrote down $1 billion of it last quarter, so that's not so good. But I applaud the Sands forward thinking in terms of it. But I think you're going to see lots of mainstream CPG companies, beverage companies, deploying capital into the space, and pharma probably to some degree. It's a little bit harder for pharma to do it because it's hard to patent a molecule in the space. It's plant medicine, but there'll be companies that get into it.
Yep. So as you've matured in the industry, you've now joined a couple of boards of companies that are dealing with cannabis. At least one of those is now going into psychedelics.
We got one of the first licenses for psilocybin manufacturing in Canada. So Canada's already legalized the psilocybin, which, if you don't know, is the psychoactive component that is in a bunch of mushrooms. You've heard of magic mushrooms. That I did find at Cornell at school at one point, I think.
Thanks, Smoke. Okay.
But seriously, like it's really interesting. Wait, and
This is 1987, remember, or maybe even earlier, probably 85. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. What's really fascinating what's happening with the research, and it's helping again back to PTSD and a whole bunch of mental health issues that are afflicting not just veterans but lots of people in society. And these products that psilocybin being one of them, ketamine has become legalized. It's a form of it. There's a whole bunch of other substances, MDMA, which is ecstasy, I guess you'd call it. And these things actually have tremendous potential and are showing a lot of progress in helping treatment of all kinds of mental illnesses. And the governments are moving in the right direction to allow it. And there was a lot of promising research back, I guess, in the 60s, and then they shut it all down, right? So we've had a really misguided war on drugs that was not based on science in any way, shape, or form. And I'm glad we're slowly fixing it. But Canada's kind of been a leader, and so we got our license, we've got our first room. It's like the size of the stage, but it's really interesting. I guess we can make 160,000 pills every 6 weeks of psilocybin that will go to clinics that are part of a therapeutic process, with doctors. So it's really interesting.
Excellent. Anitra, why couldn't you just pick crypto or something instead of cannabis? So it's actually a question for Smoke, but you avoided crypto.
I did, and everything doesn't look as good right now, right? Like that looks a little hard. I finally did buy some crypto, but it was like the wrong time, of course. But no, look, crypto is cool. My thing was really about the blockchain is really interesting, and it's going to change lots of industries. But crypto, I'm still, I've looked at it and I looked at it seriously, and I was like, yeah, this looks like just another security. And it's going to get regulated like a security. And I wrote that publicly in 2017, and that's what's happened. Now they're cracking down on it. It's still a great technology. It's just, you can't go issue this thing and call it something else, and it gives you money that you can go use to fund your business and not call it a security. That's what it is. Yep. So that was my observation there.
I'm kind of glad that you stayed on the side that you did. Make your life a little more simple. So you've transitioned from all the things you told us about, entrepreneur, cannabis, psychedelics, alcohol, beverage, and now you've moved into banking at a boutique bank. Why? Why did you make that career move?
It's funny, I was sitting...
Which is why he's wearing a tie today with a pocket square, which I think is kind of humorous, actually. I've never, ever seen you. Maybe at a formal.
If you're going to get up and talk about all the sins, right? The booze business and the different drug business, and I'm going to be the guy doing that, at least I could have the only guy with a tie on today, right? No, yeah, it's really a natural progression. It sounds funny, but I've probably, I was sitting on my roof we live in Ventura, California, so watching the sunset, sipping on a little Irish whiskey with my partner who founded STS Capital, and he's like, Smoke, how many deals have you done over the years? And I'm like, 50 or so, acquisitions mostly that I bought different companies and brands over the years. And he's like, why don't you do it, help other people do it? You'd be so great at it. I'm like, yeah, it sounds fun. And then, 6 months later, I call him, like, were you serious? Like, yeah, come join me. I joined him as a partner and started doing it. And, it's funny, I didn't think about it this way, but having bought a lot of companies, I thought I was really good at M&A. What I was really good at is the acquisition part. And selling a company is a completely different thing. And you realize that, I realized that most entrepreneurs, most business owners, spend a lot of time, decades sometimes, building up their business, and then they have one transaction, it's called the sale, the exit. The people buying it are either private equity groups or they're strategic buyers, and they have teams of people, and they buy things all the time. They spend all their time buying stuff. So you think about, the playing field is not level. And so really, I'm kind of on a mission to help me, my old self, make sure that the playing field is level and that the entrepreneurs get what they should get. I figure at this point that, we left probably a couple $100 million on the table for deals when I did sell, that, if I had me then, I would have, been able to realize. And, we did great. The family made a lot of money. I'm not complaining. I'm not even looking back on it, but it's that kind of number. Yeah. And now I feel like we're mission aligned with entrepreneurs. So I'm having fun. And it's also fun just being involved with a lot of different industries. I'm doing a deal in Asia. I'm doing, ag deals and tech deals and lots of different things. And of course, cannabis and beverage is still something I know well, I love, and I'm still very active in it. So doing a number of projects in that space. So I get to touch a lot of things.
Good.
Seems like a fun stage.
Excellent. So I'm going to end with one question, then we'll open up to the audience. So I want to go back to our college years. So a long time ago. We've all had a lot of ups and downs in college, some more than others, some people more than others. So not all of us have gotten kicked out of Cornell, which I think you did, if I remember correctly.
Did you do opposition research on everybody, or just on your buddy Smoke?
I just thought you'd just share this little story about getting kicked out, how it made you different. I don't know, lessons learned.
He invites me up here on stage, and then he wants to talk to me about my darkest day. No, seriously, no. I asked Zach to ask me.
He knew about this one.
Yeah, yes. So while Zach was doing work, preparing to be a genius lawyer and entrepreneur, person.
Genius Smoke. I just say hardworking.
Hardworking guy who helps everybody, right? I was doing other things, less serious student at the time, and I do have 4 college graduate children. So I obviously, did something right along the way, but at the time, I wasn't as serious as I should have been. And so when I was working in Boston the summer after junior year, I was working at Ritz-Carlton. I got the letter from Cornell that said, "We invite you to show us you could do the work elsewhere." I don't know if anyone else has seen that letter. You don't have to raise your hand, but you know the letter I'm talking about. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. Okay. Well, my mom's a teacher. My dad's a writer. I also came from limited resources, and I was like, okay, I don't really have anything, so I'm like, all right, what am I going to do here? So I had heard about Harvard had this night school called the Harvard Extension, and it was for the local people in Boston. So I went over to Harvard. I had my Cornell ID. I said, hey, I got an internship at the Ritz-Carlton. I'm a Cornell student. Can I take some classes? They're like, sure, no problem. So I just signed up for classes, and they were cheap. They're really normal Harvard, professors, but it was for very discounted. So I was like, all right, I can do this. Then I went over to the Ritz. I said, Harvard invited me as a visiting student this semester. I'd like to extend my internship. And the Ritz-Carlton said, great, we'd love to have you. So I had a job, and I had Harvard. So I got a 3.5 and got back into Cornell. So Harvard was my stepping stone school to get back into Cornell and finish it. True story. I did graduate, but had to step into Harvard for a little bit.
That's great. Okay, let's open up for a few questions. Go ahead, in the back.
Hey, Smoke. Thanks again for the talk. As you already know, I'm in the fiber hemp space. Although a little bit different from the cannabis CBD end use, same plant. So I'm kind of curious, do you have any representation or knowledge in Washington in terms of lobbying and any, insights to the 2023 Farm Bill?
I don't know what's in the 2023 Farm Bill. We invested, close to $50 million in the hemp business. So I do know the hemp business pretty well. Now we were focused, as you know, more on the CBD side. We grew 1,800 acres of hemp. Hemp is just cannabis that it has low THC, which is the psychoactive component, just so that everyone knows what we're talking about. So it's an arbitrary name of the same plant. It's all a cannabis plant. When I planted that hemp, it was the oil from it should have been worth $300 to $400 million. When we harvested it, it might have been worth $50 million, but I couldn't sell it, so it was not a good investment for us. But it's a great plant. It's got tremendous uses on the medical side, but also on the fiber side, which I know you guys are focused on. The 2018 Farm Bill, which got signed into law in December of 2018, basically enabled hemp to be a legitimate mainstream product. A lot of people jumped into it. What the Farm Bill didn't do at the time is address some specific things that we didn't think about, which was the FDA weighing in and not allowing it to be sold in grocery stores and not allowing it to be ingested, which it really screwed up the entire industry, and people lost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars because of the FDA. Now, these guys have, I think, are controlled by Big Pharma, and they have they're against this plant for a reason. So, you know, we can talk about that. I think in your side of things, you know, the fiber side has tremendous potential, needs a lot of investment, obviously in infrastructure. And you've got a little bit of a gun-shy farmer base because they lost a lot of money, along with all of us who lost a lot of money in that early days of the legalization. But I believe in it as a plan. It'll be great. You know, I like what you guys are trying to do.
Hi, Peter, law school alumni. So cannabis is a very broad field. You have everything from growing to dispensaries to products and technology. You know, within these sectors, what are the high growth areas where there's, in your opinion, there's still good opportunities? And is it too late for the green rush?
Great question. So first of all, someone asked me, what inning are we in? I think we're just out of spring training. Honestly, like, it's early. There's still a tremendous runway of growth. You know, I think Cowen just put out a number that was something like, they said that the U.S. market, legal cannabis is like 26 billion now. It's probably, you know, more than double that with the illegal market. You know, this should be a several $100 billion market globally. If you add in all the medicinal uses and the recreational, it could well be bigger than all of alcohol together. You know, so it's a tremendous market. There's still problems with the illegal side of things. We have governments that aren't enforcing the law. That's a problem. We have the federal government that's, you know, causing issues. But there's a lot of tremendous opportunities. So thank yourself, or you should thank your lucky stars you maybe didn't invest early, because a lot of us have lost a lot of money along the way. That being said, there's plenty of opportunities to lose more money if you invest wrongly going forward. And there's probably still some ways to make money. But what I would say is, you know, looking back over the last 5 years or so, the people that have made money, it's been somewhat based on which states they were in, what the regulatory climate. I mean, a lot of this has to do with what is the regulation of your particular area. How open is it? How restrictive is it? And so, you know, that's a big component. I would say that you would never have predicted that the retail dispensary side would have been, well, some people did, but you know, it didn't look like that was going to be a great move. That looks like people have done better in that side than in the growing side. Growing has been very commoditized. I'm still a believer, and you can look up my clip from CNBC on Fax Money from 2018, when I made the prediction that brands are going to be the big thing long term. That's still true, and there's still not really any big brands yet. So, you know, there's a lot of growth, and brands, I think, are going to be eventually where it is, but it's hard to build a brand. It's hard to build a brand in any category where you have all the normal tools of media and social media and all the things that you would normally do. And in this category, you don't have all those tools. So it's going to take a long time, but there's lots of opportunities. There's lots of innovation that is, you know, we're just barely scratching the surface. We talk about THC and CBD. That's 2 cannabinoids out of 152 or so that are in the plant. All these minor cannabinoids have different effects. Some of them are for sleep. Some of them are, you know, there's tremendous potential there, and we are just barely scratching the surface. When Kate was saying about medical doctors, 20% of them don't know anything about, you know, menopause, right? In women, they don't study any of that. Well, 100% of the doctors up until a few years ago didn't know anything about the endocannabinoid system, which we all have in our bodies. Like, to think about, there's a whole system in our bodies that the medical community has ignored and stricken from the record of all the medical schools because it was illegal. Like, that, how does that make any sense to anybody ever, right? So we're just scratching the surface. They couldn't even study it before. We're just starting to be able to. There's still a lot of hesitancy to do it. But I think there's a tremendous pathway to you know, invest in it. Just, you got to be careful. And I would start small. Like, I swing for the fences. I know I would be better to, like, make something work, build on it, then go to the next one. You don't have to try to win in one swing, which is kind of
Right here in front.
Thank you for sharing. So I'm right now building an agri-tech company, and we chose our beachhead market as cannabis and hemp, actually completely by chance. So I wonder what's your suggestions to, like, new entry like us into this very complicated, highly regulated, and complicated market. For example, like how to navigate the customers, like the legal one and the underground one and institutional, and how to predict the trend, as well as how to position ourselves to approach the investors. We are aware of that, so we are positioning ourselves as agricultural tech company instead of like a cannabis or hemp company.
Yeah, it's a lot to that question, but I would say that what I just said a second ago, try to prove out whatever you're going to do on a small scale, show that you can make money. The problem right now is capital is very expensive, hard to get for anyone in this space because there's been so much money that people have put into it and lost over the last few years because we all believe it's going to be big. It is going to be big. It is big already, but it doesn't mean we're going to make money along the way, right? So you're as a new entrant, you're going up against the fact that a lot of people have already lost money in the space. So I would just keep it very focused on what is a winnable, whatever your solution is, whatever you're trying to come up with, whatever your product is, how do you win at that and show that you can make it sustainable with a limited amount of capital, and then that can be scaled from there. That's really what I'm seeing now. Like, there's companies out there that are making money, and the ones that are like kind of emerging right now in this environment are ones that, didn't really raise a lot of money. They kind of just bootstrapped it and got to they figured out how to survive. And they're now kind of, they didn't go big. They weren't splashy. They weren't on TV like me. They were just like plugging along and making things work. And now they're actually looking like they kind of took the right path. So, I have one of the company I'm in one of the boards I'm on in Canada. The CEO of that company is a very practical guy who's like very focused on making money and not having extra fluff. And he's like, all these guys came up here and they put hundreds of millions of dollars. They hired all these MBAs and they brought all these suits in, and they had huge top level people, and they've all lost money, and they've all now they're in trouble. And he's just like, I'm picking up dead man wallets right now. He's like, he's growing the business. He puts his money in the store level where he's got, the store manager has a P&L, like is able to make money based on how well they run the store. And they're just very light at the top. And, so taking a very lean approach, I think, is smart in this environment. But there's going to be another boom. Like, like Josh, he likes to be contrarian. Anyone that says this industry is down and out and is not going to have another big boom with capital coming in, I think you're wrong. And I was just at a cannabis conference yesterday in the city, and it's a little bit of a gloomy. The halls are a little mopey. People are just like not super excited because people are beaten down. It feels like it's been a long time. We all thought the federal government would legalize this. But that's going to change. And when that changes, there's going to be floodgates of capital coming in. And if you've already proven out your idea, or you've proven out something where it looks plausible that you can actually make money, I don't think there's going to be a big appetite for lots of capital flowing into things that don't make money. So that wouldn't be a good plan to present. Having lived through .com era and doing this, that happened, we didn't get into that, but I had a whole saga with that side of things. And, at some point and Josh was saying this, in that time when the market collapsed, and between March and later in 2000, all those fluffy ideas were getting none of them were getting funded anymore. I raised $40.5 million in my Series B for my.com in June of 2000. That was well after the market had come down, and it was the difference between having a real business with a real model that makes sense and proof of concept and everything else, and sock puppets on TV. I think that's the same thing here. Like, if you have a solid business, there's gonna be funding available.
Good businesses always get funded eventually. Any other questions? Right here, one in front.
An awesome discussion. Thank you. You clearly have a good knack of being early in burgeoning industries. So I'm just curious, what is next for Smoke? I mean, what other industries are stimulating to you, intriguing? What are you looking at? What's interesting to you?
Well, thanks. Someone might say, I don't know, the whole story about the pioneers getting whatever arrows in the back. getting a little too early, because if you're too early, you're wrong too. So I've done that a couple times. But you know, I did get in the bottled water business in '91. If you got anyone around that remembers that, there was like 2 brands, Evian and Perrier, and that was about it. And that was pretty good. So I think this psychedelic thing is really interesting to me. I'm really interested in the space. I think plant medicine in general is a very interesting topic with a lot of potential to help a lot of people. And now figuring out how to make it investable is something I'm still spending time trying to think about. I'm actually doing I have my YPO chapter in LA next week. I'm doing a 2-day event, 1 day on homelessness, which is, if we have time, I'd love to mention that, because it's really a plague of our society, and there's some interesting solutions. And the other day is on plant medicine, and we've got a whole panel. And you know, there's one guy who's got a small venture fund. It's like a $10 million fund, but he's investing in early stage plant medicine, psychedelic companies. And I'm really interested to hear what he says, because you know, he's looking at all the deals. And you know, I think it's still early, but I think there's a lot to that. And we've got kind of the wind at our back in terms of legalization. You know, it's happening. So that's an interesting area for me. You know, there's others, but that's one for sure.
Do you want to talk about homelessness for a second?
Could I?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so a bunch of us CEOs were like complaining during pandemic about homelessness, and somehow I got invited to a WhatsApp chat, and then we were all on a Zoom. We're all talking about, like, I mean, if you took a wrong turn in LA, it looks like Z World, like that movie, you know, the zombies. I mean, it's horrible, and you know, it's a tragedy. And we got talking about it. We're like, well, maybe we should try to do something and not just complain. So like we ended up forming a task force. So we tried to understand what the issue was, and why it's getting worse all the time. You know, there's 151,000 homeless people in California alone right now, of which 76% are unhoused. You know, and that's out of 550,000 unhoused or homeless people in the U.S. So California's got the biggest chunk.
It's the leader.
It doesn't help that there's communities around the country that will put people on a bus with a one-way ticket to California.
Yeah, we understand.
Right? That's true. That happens. So you know, we've figured out that, like, well, we can't solve everything, but we could maybe help with getting transitional housing and helping people get off the street and give them a chance to get out of that situation. And one of the, like, simple observations was, you know, just having a safe room with a lock and key where you can keep your stuff and sleep at night safely and not be attacked and not have to worry about what's happening, gives you a chance to get treatment, get help, get counseling, go for a job interview. You know, just that little thing, having a key. And so we started building these things, and we've raised like $45 million. We're on our 5th or 6th community now throughout the state. We're getting now lots of questions from other states, and Oklahoma and Chicago and Oregon and other places that are having also problems. And we've really figured out kind of a model that is like a 10x factor. It's almost like a tech deal where I have, like, our CEO is just a badass lady. She's like a tech, she came out of the tech Silicon Valley world, and Elizabeth Funk, she's just amazing. And we've just got a 10x factor in terms of dollars being effective, right? So California is spending like $500,000-$600,000 per person to house them. Per person. They were buying hotels and putting them in a hotel with no services, and the hotels would turn into just dangerous places. You wouldn't want to be in these places. You'd rather be on the street. We heard people say, I'd rather be on the street because at least I can see around the corner, I can see who's coming at me. And in these places they're putting us, we can't. And they're spending that kind of money. And so we're putting people in homeless little houses like the ones Amy was talking about for like $50,000 a person with services wrapped around it. And this is transitional housing. Within 6 months, we're trying to get you out. We're not housing you forever. We're trying to get you up on your feet so you can move on to the next thing and be able to get productive. And it's really working. And you know, we visited one of the sites in Santa Barbara a couple weeks ago with our kids, and a lady came up to me and said, "You saved my life. You saved all our lives." And it was like whoa. So I need $200 million in the next 18 months to build 2,500 more units. And help a lot of people. So we're starting to do that.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's really important.
To be commended.
Dignity Moves. Anybody wants to check it out? DignityMoves.org is our 501c3. And super, like 96% of the money goes directly to homelessness. Like we are like the opposite of most not-for-profits.
We have one more question, Kathy?
Hi, Smoke. I have two questions. Just one question to follow up on your homeless speech that you just gave. Is there a way people can, without donating, is there a way that people can volunteer time or something else to something that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, for sure. Please go to the dignitymoves.org site and make an inquiry. You can also reach out to me directly. As we build these things out in different communities, there's lots of needs. We have people showing up and painting or helping. There's all kinds of ways that you can help and do things. We're not everywhere yet. We're only in certain markets in the West right now, but we're trying to be best of practice so we can help. If people want to do these things in other markets where you've got a homeless problem, we can show them what we've learned, share all the best practices, and then the local community has to get behind it, right? You have to get the local government, local, business community, and people who want to be generous to help, contribute these things. But if you can get those kind of elements, that's one reason we surrounded the big cities. We're not in LA yet because LA can't make a decision. But we're in all these little smaller communities around it, and LA's got the biggest problem. We are in San Francisco, but it's really interesting to watch this happen. It's strange. Anyway, that was your one question.
Yeah, and my second question was, so I'm a 2017 hotelier as well. One of my best friends, by the way, was a engineer, and then he had to leave for like a year, but came back and did AXI. So my friend could relate to you.
It's called resilience training.
Huh? Exactly.
It's the best thing for entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
Get kicked out, get back on your feet, and get back into school, finish.
And first thing I want to thank you, especially at 4:30, your amount of energy that you're giving to the whole presentation, or to the team here and everyone here. I think we needed that energy, so appreciate that. I'm a 2017 hotelie. I spent a few years in software investment banking, and I recently switched to AI product management. It was a decision between private equity, venture capital, or something else. Something that I've been looking at my team, and then even doing sell-side M&A, and I think a lot of the people here who are entrepreneurs. Has there been a time where maybe, or maybe the most important time where you felt at your lowest, where you had an idea that you believed it would be good, whether it's your career or like a business idea, but no one else really believed in you? And what were your next steps there?
Many times, yeah, totally. I don't know any entrepreneurs who didn't run into people that were skeptics. Look, put it this way: most people don't start businesses. So most people are skeptics, right? Like the vast majority of the population doesn't do it, and they don't do it for multiple reasons. Yeah. But one of the reasons is they don't believe. Maybe they can't see the possibility. Possibly, maybe they just have a low risk tolerance. You have to have a certain level of willingness to have everyone tell you no. As Amy was talking about raising money, or Kate was talking about raising money. I would come home when I raised one round for this cannabis deal. I think it was like $65 million, and I probably had 500 no's along the way. And I'm like, but every time I got a no, I'm like, well, I'm just that much closer to a yes. So if you have to look at these, every no is just one more step to get to that yes. And that's just the journey. And that's true of people say, no, it's a terrible idea. Ask people, but most people aren't going to see what you see. So if you believe it, do it. Just do it. Don't take no for an answer. Every no is if you get to the next person, you're getting closer to a yes.
Thank you, Smoke.
Excellent. Smoke, thank you so much. It's been really entertaining.
Thanks.
Loved it.